Have you ever looked at your life and thought, why doesn't this feel like mine? Something just isn't right. After all, you are doing all the things that you're supposed to do. You check off all the boxes. You are trying to feel grateful. You're doing all the right things. And let me just say that this question, this feeling can often come up in your 20s. It really can show up at any point in your life, but definitely in your 20s. I know that that was true for me as well. And I want to tell you something that might feel relieving and uncomfortable at the same time. The feeling that you have that something is off isn't necessarily failure. If you're thinking that you're failing at something, it's not necessarily failure. It's actually an opportunity for you to awaken. I'm Kim Gross, and I am the host of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. And I really am speaking today to the person out there who is really struggling because you feel like you're trying so damn hard to get life right. You're trying so hard to feel happy, to feel good, and to achieve and accomplish and get things to create the life that you want. And it just isn't showing up for you. And you're like, what the heck am I doing wrong? And I just want to start by saying, first of all, you're not failing and you're not wrong. So for me, the moment came when I realized that I was making decisions based on how I thought other people would receive me, and not necessarily how it felt in my body, and not necessarily coming from my intuition. Let me share. First of all, I could give you countless examples of where I made decisions for myself based upon what I thought the other person wanted me to do, rather than what was my body telling me to do. But I'm going to share this one particular story with you. And I write about this example in my book, Free to Be, A Pathway to Inner Liberation. And actually, if you haven't picked up a copy of my book, it's available on Amazon. And I will just say this to you. In my book, I share very, very vulnerably and deeply. In fact, my book is based on 21 years worth of my journals. My journals where I have my deepest, most intimate thoughts. And that became the foundation for this book. And that's why I share so many stories. So this one story in particular is when I was 30 years old. I had already been married for 6 years. Well, let me back up and just say this. Just like I said in the very opening of this episode, I was checking off all the boxes. I graduated from high school, top of my class. I went on to college for 4 years. I did well. I went on to get my master's degree. And then I became a teacher. I got married when I was 24 because I don't even know. It was just like everybody, my friends were all getting married. Sorry, there's something in my eye. And so I got married, I was teaching, and now I'm 30 years old and I'm starting to feel the pressure from my mom and from my husband. Okay, Kim, you're 30. When are we going to start having a family. The biological clock is ticking. It's like that proverbial biological clock. So between just society, all of my friends who were married and having kids already at this point, and my mom saying to me, when am I gonna have grandkids? I wanna have grandkids. And my husband saying like, okay, like, let's get going here. We've been married for 6 years already, no kids. And I wasn't really sure that I wanted to have kids. It wasn't that I felt like I didn't want to, but I more or less had this fear around actually birthing kids and going through delivery. I just had heard so many stories, so many horror stories about how god-awful painful it can be to have babies. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a freaking scaredy cat and I just didn't want to go through it. And I never really thought about whether I wanted to be a mom. And I wasn't one of those women who dreamed about their wedding day, who dreams about being a mom and, like just this rainbows and sunshine and unicorn type of life. It wasn't me. I just was doing my life. Okay, so I feel the pressure from everyone on the outside, and rather than listening to myself, rather than tapping in, listening to my body, listening to my gut, I just abandoned myself completely, and I got pregnant with my first child. And my pregnancy was okay, it wasn't great, but I did have difficulty delivering him. I hemorrhaged on the table, and then he had a horrible first week because he couldn't nurse. He was severely dehydrated. He couldn't nurse because he was tongue-tied and we didn't know it. So he was literally like starving to death. So that was super traumatic for him and for me. And then my second child, 3 years later, I was very sick throughout the whole pregnancy. I had preeclampsia, which is a condition that is very harmful to the mother. I had high blood pressure, I was swollen, and then I had to be induced 5 weeks early, hemorrhaged again with the second, almost died on the table, and then hemorrhaged again 2 weeks postpartum when I was at home. So my fears came to fruition. One might say that maybe I manifested those horrible pregnancies. Who knows if that's true or not true. And I will say this as a caveat, that today my kids are 26 and 23, and I am absolutely grateful they are in my life. I love being their mother. They have taught me so much. I am so much of a better person because of them. And I wouldn't have it any other way now. But the moral of the story is that I just made these decisions, and so many of them, as I said, that was just one example of where I was not choosing what I wanted. I was choosing what I thought other people wanted me to do. And a lot of that was because I was a people pleaser. I was a perfectionist. I wanted everyone to be happy with me. I felt like I had to go along with what everyone was doing in society, and I couldn't rock the boat. I couldn't go against the current. And so I completely self-abandoned. And that's why I and you can feel like your life is not your own, and why you can feel so freaking miserable, disconnected, and even depressed. So I want to say this, first of all, that when I chose to have kids or any other decision that I made when it wasn't my own, it's not because I was weak, because I'm not weak and you're not weak, and I wasn't confused. It's because somewhere along the way, I learned and you learned, you were conditioned that if you are going to belong, it required you to live up to other people's expectations. Now, let me explain. There were probably countless times when you were a little kid that you wanted something and you were trying to assert yourself. And the adults in your life, some or all, maybe not all of them, would tell you that you were wrong, or they would shut you down, they would discount you, they would, oh, you're just a little kid, you don't know what you want. And you learned that it was safer to go along with what the adults were saying rather than to stay true to yourself. Because as a little kid, it's safer. It's your safety. You have to listen to the adults in your life because they take care of you. And if you didn't listen to them in your little kid mind, it's not that it would be true, but you believed perhaps that if you really upset the adults and you didn't do what was expected, that they could leave you and then you would not be able to survive. So this is a survival technique. It's a way of protecting you that you learned a long time ago.
Hey, it's Kim here, interrupting your regularly scheduled podcast episode to let you know about an opportunity to go deeper into this work. I invite you to head over to Amazon.com and pick up your copy of my book, Free to Be: A Pathway to Inner Liberation. If you are looking to unhook from people pleasing and perfectionistic patterns, if you're looking to have a better way of identifying your patterns and then how you can unhook so you can be free to step outside your comfort zone, free to have more meaningful relationships in your life, free to be your true self without hiding behind a mask any longer. If you desire any of this, then I encourage you to pick up your copy. And if you enjoy my book as much as I loved writing it, please go on over and leave a review on Amazon. You can leave a star review or written review. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcast episode.
And so then from there, many of us have learned how to read the room, manage other people's emotions by being a good little girl, by doing what others want us to do, keeping the peace, not rocking the boat. You know what I'm saying, right? You hear what I'm saying, and I'm sure that it resonates with you. And I used to do this all the time with my mom because there were so many times that she did get upset with me and she would withdraw or withhold her love when she was angry. And so I didn't know if she was going to come back around. I didn't know if she would leave. And it was just way too uncomfortable for me to have her so upset with me that she would give me the cold shoulder. She would withdraw, she would pull back. And that was her way of dealing with her emotions with everyone. She was definitely an avoider. She was a conflict avoider. So she would withdraw. But for me, it was so scary when she did that. So I was afraid. So I just wanted to keep the peace with her, and I would read her emotions. I would read her body language. And then I continued to do the same thing. I continued that pattern well into adulthood when I became a mom myself, I would constantly try to manage the emotions of my kids and my husband, making sure that everyone was peaceful. And I can tell you that I'm still working on it. I just had to go through an experience over the holidays just a couple of weeks ago where I made a promise to myself that I was going to work really hard and I was going to pause anytime that a conflict or a rupture started between my two kids. Again, they are 26 and 23. They're not little kids, they're grown adults, young adults. But I still go to this place of wanting to manage the emotions of everyone. And I made the promise that I was going to just pause and I was going to walk away and I was going to let go and let them figure it out themselves. And lo and behold, it ended up being a more peaceful holiday because I stayed in my own lane. So what I'm trying to say is that when we have these patterns of trying to manage the emotions, live according to the expectations of what others want us to do, we disconnect from our true selves. And Gabor Mate describes that as being trauma. Every time that we abandon ourselves to stay attached or meet the expectations of another, to keep the peace or to feel like we're going to be safe, that's trauma when we self-abandon. I just want to say that if you are feeling lost right now, if you're feeling unmotivated, you're feeling restless, again, you feel like your life is not yours, you might wake up in the morning with this like pit in your stomach of like, there's like almost this dread to start the day, or there's a numbness that you feel. You feel almost kind of like flatline. You don't feel joy. You don't feel aliveness. If you're feeling any of that, it's not because you don't know who you are, because you do know who you are. At one point, you came into the world knowing your essence, knowing your true self. It's that you are disconnected from that true self. And you're tired. You're so tired of putting on a mask and pretending to be someone who you're not. It's exhausting to wear the masks all the time and to show up pleasing, to show up perfecting. And so it ends up showing up in your life as exhaustion and burnout and just this like funk. You feel like you're in a funk. And sometimes it's okay. Like sometimes you're okay if you're distracted. If you're out with friends, you might be distracted for a while, or you might be distracted when you're at your job because you don't have the time to think about it. It's in those moments when you are alone, you're with your thoughts and it's quiet and it's still, and then you notice that feeling. You notice that ache almost. It's like there's an ache in your soul to be. You may not know that it's your soul wanting you to, or for you to return to your true self. You might not be able to articulate or identify what's underneath, but that's what I do, is that's where I come in. That's the work that I do, is I help you to become aware of your patterns that are keeping you stuck in this place that's causing you to feel the way that you feel. And I teach you to unhook from the patterns. I teach you how to take the masks off. And I teach you how to heal the wound, that original wound, or the wounds that are keeping you in a place where you keep putting on the mask, because the masks are, you believe they are protecting you, but they're no longer serving you. And that's why you're feeling the way that you feel. So the truth is that it's time for you to stop pretending and become more aware. And when you become more aware, it doesn't mean that you have to immediately take some action and do something different, like most people are doing at the beginning of the year because it's January. They start to try to do all these new action steps. Awareness doesn't demand immediate action. What awareness asks for is just for you to get honest and willing. If you can be honest with yourself and you can be willing to look at how you are playing a part, how you are perpetuating the patterns and a co-creator of your own misery, when you can take that responsibility and then do what is required to heal so you can show up differently, that's when real change can start to happen and you start to return to your true self. So if you are interested in doing the work, if you're new to this type of work, if you're new to this podcast, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you find this episode and many others like this of value. I really hope that what I'm sharing can inspire you to want the willingness to be aware and to be honest and to have some curiosity. Like, what is all this about? You mean there really is another way for me to live and feel? You mean I can honestly have more joy in my life? I can have more peace in my life? I can feel comfortable in my own skin? You mean to tell me that I can have such unwavering confidence in who I am, that no matter what's happening on the outside, that I'm calm and safe on the inside, I'm okay? You mean all of that is really possible, Kim? And I'm saying, yes, it is possible. It has happened for me and for countless others. So I know that it can happen for you as well. And if you're curious, you can go to my website, kimgrosscoaching.com. Everything is there. I have, my book is available on my website, and I have an online course that you can take that teaches you the framework for everything I've been talking about in this episode. That's available. And then if you're interested in working one-on-one with me, where I can help support you and guide you through the process, then you can let me know that as well. I would be honored to work with you one-on-one. So finally, as I round out this episode, here's just a couple of questions for you to reflect on. You can just think about them, or if you are a person who likes to journal like I do, you can use these as journal prompts. So the first thing that I would invite you to think about is, where in your life are you performing instead of choosing what is right for you? For example, have you chosen a career path because you thought that was what others wanted you to do, or it just at the moment seemed like a good choice, but it actually isn't aligned? For example, you may have decided to go to college and then go to medical school because that's what your parents did, or your grandparents were doctors. So there was this unspoken expectation that you become a doctor, and you're going all through medical school and your residency, and you're like, oh my God, I don't like this. This isn't what I wanted to do. This isn't aligned. So have you chosen a career path, or have you chosen a partner that's not aligned for you? So that's the first thing. Where in your life are you performing instead of choosing what is right for you? So you can journal about that question. The second question is, what decisions feel more about receiving approval than alignment? So again, similar to question 1, but you can expand on it and add in other decisions that you might make, as simple as a friend asks you to go to lunch and you don't want to be rude, so you say yes when it's not even aligned. This is a person you don't even really like spending time with, but you continue to go to lunch with her or spend time. So what decisions feel more about receiving approval than alignment? And then finally, the third question is, which I love this question. This is such a really good one to get you to reflect. If your life truly felt like your own, what would be different from the way it is now? For example, where would you live? Would you live somewhere differently than where you do? Do you live in the Northeast because that's where your partner or your family live, but you really want to live in a warmer climate, but you don't? What job, career, again, similar to the first question, what job or career would you have if your life felt like it was truly yours? And maybe even ask yourself if you would have a family, or do you want to be single? And you can ask yourself, if your life felt truly like your own, what activities would you do? Do you love yoga? Do you love to sing? Do you enjoy kayaking or paddleboarding, but you don't do any of those things? You just think about them. So these questions are designed to poke at you a little bit, not to necessarily make you feel depressed if your responses don't align at all with the life that you desire. It's more about helping you to become aware of the fact that you're not living the life that you choose or the life that you desire. You're just doing what is expected of you, and you're living a life that's according to other people, designed by others. You have no autonomy, or very little autonomy, in designing your life. Now, let me just say one other little caveat to this. I do recognize that there are things that we have to do in our lives that we may not want to do because it's necessary for survival. You may have to take that job because you have to pay rent. You may have to take a job that feels like a dead end because you need to have your car, because having a car is the only way you can get to your job, and the job is what puts food on the table, clothes on your body, or your kids if you have a family. And there are certain things that are required of you. And I understand that. So I'm not saying like completely abandon the life that you have or burn your life down, or if you have young kids, I'm not promoting or advocating that you walk away from your partner if that isn't feasible. So it's about beginning to just look at other you can start to make other micro changes. There are many, many other things that you can do to start creating the life that you want. You can be in alignment in the way that you think, in the way that you feel, in the way that you show up in the world. I just wanted to add that piece in. And it's one step at a time. It's baby steps. This isn't like all or nothing, and this is not like change your life overnight type of thing. So again, I just want to share with you that I'm helping to poke some holes, raise awareness, get you to start thinking about why you may be feeling like your life isn't yours, and then what you can do about it. And again, I'll say that if you are looking for support or someone to help steer the ship for you and to support you, because it's so hard, so incredibly hard to do this work on your own. It really does require having others to help guide you. And since I have been through it, I know that I can help you.
Hey, Kim Gross here. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Masks Off for People Pleasers and Perfectionists. I invite you to hop on over to my website, kimgrosscoaching.com. Right there on the front page, there's a quiz for people pleasers and perfectionists. You can find out if you have tendencies. You can also get into my newsletter, where you will be given valuable content every week on different topics I share here in the podcast. And if you really did enjoy this episode, if you found it helpful, if you found it valuable, please go to, if you're on YouTube, go and subscribe. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, then I invite you to leave a review. You can even do a star review. It doesn't have to be a written review. If you know of someone who can benefit from this podcast or this particular episode, please share it with them. I'll see you next time.